Hey friends, it's Jeannie and welcome to the Trinity Stamps new release video hop. I'm sharing a light up card featuring a few of the new products in the shop from the Sending Smooches release. I'll leave the details and the link to the next video down below so you can hop for a chance to win a $25 gift card. Today I'm using the Joyful Heart stamp set in coordinating dies along with the Intertwined heart die and the Embossed edge rectangle stack. And this is a really unique die because it has a ton of nesting rectangles, but it does emboss the edge of a card panel. And because this is a light up card, I am using the Pear Blossom Press Easy Lights as well. So I'm starting off with this green piece of cardstock, and I decided I wanted to add some ink blending to the card panel. I cut it a little bit larger than my rectangle die, and I kind of just inked up the edges because I wanted to have a little bit of interest. And I didn't go super heavy-handed. I will go back in a few times just to get it to the darkness I like. Later on, when I put the entire card together, you don't really notice it, and I wish I went in a little bit darker, but you know, you live and learn. I'm using the largest rectangle die from that embossed edge rectangle stack, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut it. Like I said, it leaves this really subtle embossed edging to it, and of course, if you already have nested rectangle dies, you really don't need this in your collection, but I thought it was kind of fun and I think I'll be using it quite often. I placed my stamp set along with the Intertwined heart die just to see where I wanted to place everything. The gnome will be at the bottom of the card and the hearts will be right above his head. I also cut out the same die using brown cardstock because I wanted it to be a different color that stood out from the green. For the Joyful Heart image himself, I think he is so adorable. I know that this is part of the January release for Valentine's Day, but I think that this can be used year-round for any type of card that is non-Valentine's Day. It's just super adorable. I decided to go in with these pink Copic markers and I had a hard time blending them. I think that these pinks, the RVs, are kind of hard to blend. I have a hard time because sometimes the color picks up the ink that you already put down and kind of just brightens it up. It's a weird pink, but I really like it because it's so much brighter. My go-to Copic pinks are R81, R83 and R85, and those blend really nicely, but I always struggle when I pull out these RVs. So if you are new to Copics, I would warn against these. I still will use them. It just takes a little bit more effort to blend, and I can see that it could make some people very frustrated because it's not blending as nicely as possible. You'll see me go over the colors quite a few times just to get it blended out, and eventually I end up covering up the entire area of the RV02, even though I really wanted to keep it in for the highlighting. But just to get everything to blend, I got to a point where I was frustrated and I just wanted to be done with it. For the rest of the gnome, I'm going in with 3 colors and coloring up his shoes and his beard and his face. I won't be coloring the little heart because that is one of the portions that I will be lighting up on this card. So I will need to actually cut that heart out, and I'll go in with an X-Acto knife to do that. But for the rest of the coloring, it's standard Copic coloring, and I was thinking that maybe I will start using some of my Spectrum Noir markers for my coloring, just in case you guys want a cheaper option. I was very comfortable with Spectrum Noir markers at first before they changed their formula. So they now have the Illustrator markers, which have a brush nib, which is awesome, but the formulas and the colors are a little bit different, so I'm not as comfortable with the color combinations, but if there's enough interest, I can definitely try to use them because I have them and share the coloring that I do with those. And I think that sometimes their coloring, it's easier to blend because the colors are very similar to each other, which is what I've noticed. It's harder to get the dimension that I normally get from Copics, but you know, it's something we can try out. My sister also has the Ohuhu markers, which are a very reasonably priced brand of brush tip markers, except they don't have refills yet, which is always like a downside to me because I color so often that I need markers that have refills, or it wouldn't be worth repurchasing them, especially because I don't think they sell single markers. There's always pros and cons with the types of mediums that one person would like to use, and alcohol markers have just been an investment, and definitely for the Copics, it's taken me quite a few years to build up my collection, but I always used to mix and match with my Spectrum Noir markers because you can just mix and match alcohol markers and build up your collection, and I bought them at Michael's with a coupon, and I bought them whenever I saw that they were on sale and things like that. So if you guys are interested, I definitely wouldn't mind putting that together. For the gnome itself, I used the coordinating die to quickly cut him out. He's actually a pretty easy image that I could have just easily fussy cut him, but it's because I had the coordinating die, I went ahead and used it. And for the heart, I am cutting it out with an X-Acto knife. I'm going to be lighting up the heart that's in his hands, as well as the 2 intertwined hearts. And this card was a little bit tricky because of that, because there's so much open space with the vellum. So before moving on to the lights, I wanted to put it on top of an A2 card panel and mark off where I want to place the lights. So I also would have to cut out the little heart on the green card panel, and I kind of cheated. I just cut out a square because it was easier for me, and I just kept it smaller than the gnome itself. For all the heart areas, I am putting vellum behind it, and I am using my Copic markers to color up the vellum, so when the light hits it, it'll project some of that color. I started coloring the area of the vellum. I'm just using that scrap die that I'm not going to use for my card, and using it as a template for where I need to color in with my Copics. I used it in the reverse because you don't want the coloring to show up on the front. You want it to be behind, just so it softens up the color a bit. And also, Copics don't really blend well on vellum. It's kind of streaky, so I tried to blend it out as much as possible, and I filled up that entire area. So I go in a few times just trying to get the blend right, and you'll see that I have the Copic markers facing on the back. I'm going to add a double-sided adhesive all around the hearts so I can put that vellum down, as well as the smaller heart for the gnome's hands. And once I do that, I'll start working on the lights. These easy lights, I've used them in plenty of videos. They are so fun, they're so easy to use, and I love them. I'm going to walk you through that again, and if you're interested, I have other videos that have light up cards. I do different things with them, and I think I have like another video this week that's a light up card. I just couldn't help myself. Before I added the gnome onto the card panel, I decided I wanted to give him a little bit of ground. Sometimes I don't like when images are floating out of nowhere, so I just inked up a little portion of green. He covers up most of it, but I, in my mind, know that it's there. So before I move on to the lights, I also add the very delicate intertwined heart die. I'm just adding liquid glue onto it and then adding it directly onto the vellum. The vellum is also helpful because it is able to hold up that delicate die, and I'm just carefully placing it on top of the card panel. But it really stands out with that brown. I like to incorporate the same colors within a card, so that's why I colored up his shoes brown as well. So for the easy lights, if you're new to them, they come in a 2-pack, 3-pack, and 5-pack, I believe, and it comes with a unit and a battery. Each unit has 3 different lights, so it's all connected. There's no copper wires or anything. You literally just need Scotch tape, and you can figure out the light configuration. I think the thing that you have to remember when you use this is you want to mark off your card panel so you know exactly where you want it lit up. I also put in the battery already, so I wanted to make sure that it would work. And then there's a button, so I just added double-sided tape to the unit, placed it where I want the press here to be, and then I am matching up the little lights that are at the end of each of these wires. It's this small yellow thing, and using Scotch tape and lining everything up. So it's super duper easy. I am also using the Sweetheart panel to die cut some gold hearts, to kind of embellish the area. The card panel is kind of plain, so I thought the gold hearts would go well with the golden hearts that are being lit up. For the sentiment, I'm using one of the sentiments in the stamp set, stamping it with Juicy ink and embossing with Arctic white embossing powder. I changed my mind and decided to go with the Love Ya sentiment instead, and I thought that that would just work better. I don't know why, it's just I changed my mind, and you can use whatever sentiment you want. For all my light up cards, I used 2 layers of foam, and for this one it was a little tricky because I didn't want any foam to show through the vellum, since vellum is very translucent and you can definitely see it when it lights up. So I had to be very careful of where I placed the foam, and I kept checking it. I spared you that time that I spent doing that, and once I have everything configured correctly, I will go ahead and adhere that panel directly onto the card panel. I'm also adding all my embellishments, as well as adding these little heart of gold embellishments, because you know what? I'm going to fill this card up with all sorts of hearts, shapes of hearts, that I might as well. So once I do that, everything's done, and we have this light up card, which is super duper adorable and perfect for any time. So that is it for today's card. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.